Hey guys, welcome back to MassiveSynth.com tutorials. We're starting a new feature this month where we're going to be looking at designing effect sounds using Massive. So uplifters, downlifters, impacts and kind of short sweep stuff. And starting with this tutorial today, I was going to show you how to make this uplifter sound. And all the programming with that sound is being done with inside Massive. I've got a little bit of automation and a high pass kind of filter right at the end there, the sweep, and there's also some pitch modulation going on there, just the kind of rise in the pitch, but the rest of it's been done with inside Massive, all that programming in there using steppers and performers and stuff. So start off by creating a new sound in Massive and program the oscillators. So for oscillator 1, I'm going to use an escalation 1 wavetable. I'm going to take the pitch down -12, so down 1 octave, and pull the wavetable position to around 2/3 of the way up. Intensity can stay on full, amp can stay on full, and it's going to route to both filters as well. So quite a nice gritty tone to start with, and turn on oscillator 2, and we're going to have a digigrain 1 wavetable in here. Keep the pitch at 0, and wavetable position can come to around similar, sort of 2/3 of the way around, and we're going to change it to bend plus mode actually, which is just going to give us quite a nice tone on the sound, and then just pull the intensity down slightly. The amp can stay on full and the filter routing can stay where it is as well. For oscillator 3, turn that on. We're going to use a sine triangle wavetable. Wavetable position all the way to the right, so it's a triangle wave. Pull the intensity down a bit, taking some of that top end off, and pull the amp to around halfway. Take the pitch up by +5 semitones to create a bit of a chord, but then just to make that triangle wave a bit more kind of come through with the mix of the three oscillators, I'm going to take the pitch up by a further 2 octaves, so +29. To that. We're going to modulate this amp of oscillator 3 shortly. So next thing we can do is, well, we could probably set up the pitch really to give us that kind of rising sort of pitch sound. So I'm going to use a stepper to do this. I know with a lot of kind of rises, if you use an envelope to modulate the pitch, so we're going to give this, apply this envelope to modulate the pitch of the three oscillators and go +24. We get quite a cool pitch, but because we can't tempo sync these envelopes, we're limited to sort of how the pitch rises and also whether it's in sync with the tune or not. You know, it just rises. It's not necessarily in sync with the BPM of the track. So I actually found a way around this by using a stepper instead to modulate that pitch. So a second LFO slot here, convert this into a stepper and sync it, and take the ratio down to 1/1, and let's get this to modulate the pitch of the three oscillators the same way as that envelope did. So just replace that kind of modulation there. So it's modulating the pitch of these three oscillators at +24, and what we can do now is activate the snap to grid function, and then we can just do another kind of more precise kind of rise really. It's a bit more program this. Just go in increments of +1 step each time, then the last 4 steps can be +12, and then, well, if you listen to this now, we're hearing that step in the pitch, but we can avoid that by highlighting each one of these steps that rises. Highlight this box underneath. This is the glide modulation, and the glide amount push up to full, so now we get a smoother transition in between that kind of pitch rise, and because we've activated this stepper and we've tempo synced it, ratio 1/1, it's now tempo synced to the track, so we can just get the pitch to rise in time with the kind of drum roll or whatever kind of breakdown you're sort of programming. So the next thing we do here is set up a performer to modulate the pitch of all the oscillators as well as the amp of oscillator 3. So in this first LFO slot here, let's convert this into a performer, sync it, keep the ratios 1/16, push the X phase sequence to the top. I'm going to change the curves here to this one in the bottom left hand corner and create a sequence a bit like this. Just click and drag across, so we apply that same curve to all 16 of these steps and something like this. So it's basically descending curves like that. And then what we can do here is click and drag the crosshair of this performer to the modulation slot of the amp of oscillator 3, click and drag up, and if I mute oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, you can hear that kind of modulation being applied there, and it's creating quite a nice bit of movement on that oscillator. We can actually use this same performer to modulate the pitch of all three oscillators. So we've got this kind of pitch rising thing going on. Could actually add this performer to the pitch as well in the reverse direction. So click and drag, holding shift, click and drag the crosshair and just apply it to the pitch modulation on all three oscillators. Holding Alt or Option, click and drag down, so it's -12 and a pitch modulation amount being applied, and now we'll have that kind of reverse pitch modulation, which is creating a pretty cool effect on the sound. We can actually activate this modulation oscillator now as well. It's already turned on, but we've not actually got it routed to any of the oscillators, so we're going to use the ring modulation here and select 3 there. So it's now we've got ring modulation amount. We've got ring modulation being applied to oscillator 3, and to hear this in full effect, let's mute oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 again. Quite cool, but what we need to do here is apply that same pitch modulation to the modulation oscillator, so -12 in the first pitch modulation slot, and get this stepper as well, and so we get the ring modulation is kind of rising up as well, so that stepper can go in the second pitch modulation slot. So, and then just turn the amount up a bit. It's quite a cool effect on oscillator 3. Unmute oscillator 1 and 2 again. And what we can do now is we can set the filters up, so we can keep it in parallel mode, so it's basically running through both filters at the same time. Turn the volume of filter 2 up and put the mix slider halfway between the two filters. In filter 1 we can have a low pass filter, and filter 2 a band pass, and I'm going to apply modulation to the cutoff frequency of both filters here. So filter 1, push the cutoff to around halfway and use this same stepper, click and drag the crosshair, click and drag up, and then actually if we just solo the first filter now, we're getting like kind of same sweep on the pitch that we get in the rise. We're getting this kind of cutoff frequency sweeping up. Turn that resonance down a little bit, and then do a similar thing, filter 2. Maybe keep the cutoff frequency about 1/3 of the way up, bandwidth around halfway, and push the resonance up a little bit, so the effect of this bandpass sweep is going to be a bit more pronounced. And click and drag the crosshair this stepper to the modulation slot there, click and drag up. So getting that bandpass sweep there again, and yeah, just the mix slider of these two filters. If you double click it, actually it just kind of goes to halfway, so we're getting a blend of these two filters in the sound now. So next we can do is add some effects. A chorus ensemble, just take the dry wet down to around 1/4 of the way, depth to around 1/3, and that's just adding a nice bit of width in kind of sort of chorus kind of thickness to the sound. Bit of reverb as well, take the dry wet right down, size down a little bit, and push the colour up. Reverb always sounds really nice on these kind of effects sounds. can add some feedback as well, just push the amp of that up to around quarter of the way, just to warm the sound up a bit. Go to the voicing tab next, make sure the sound's monophonic. Oscillator, make sure we've got no glide on the sound. And also this pitch bend here, if you remember I showed you the MIDI, we've got this pitch rise happening here, this pitch bend programming there, just to accentuate that kind of rise in the pitch, but that's not going to have an effect on the sound unless you activate some pitch in here. If this is at 0, we're not going to get any of that pitch rise happening. So put that up to plus 24. You'll still get this kind of stepper kind of modulating the pitch, but just applying that kind of pitch bend up to plus 24 means we can sort of rise the pitch a little bit more there, which is pretty cool for those uplifter type sounds. Amp envelope, just make sure we've got a nice sharp attack. And I was going to apply some more modulation here actually. Turn on the EQ, and to just get a bit of modulation in the kind of high shelf there, I'm going to go for this third LFO slot here, sync this, get the ratio 1/16, and turn the X-fade curve to the bottom and activate the sawtooth wave, so it's a sawtooth wave for this LFO, and click and drag the crosshair this to the first modulation slot on this high shelf of the EQ, click and drag up, so now we're getting and turn that reverb down a bit. We're getting some nice modulation on those kind of tops. We can do the same thing, this cutoff frequency of the low pass filter, but not quite as much. And it just applies quite a nice amount of movement to that sort of high frequency. So that's the sound really. Let's give it a spin. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Any questions, please get in touch, and make sure you come check us out for part 2, where we're going to be making a kind of downlifter sound using some of these similar techniques, using steppers and performers and stuff to just create quite a nice downlifter sound. So yeah, hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers, bye.